The cargo freighter Distant Star moved slowly through the empty black of space. It was not a beautiful ship. It was not a fast ship. It was simply a working ship, built to carry goods from one place to another. And it did this job well. Danny Cole sat in the captain's chair and watched the stars pass by on the main screen. He was a man of 38 years, with tired eyes and a calm face. His brown hair was starting to show gray at the sides, and his hands were rough from years of honest work. He looked like exactly what he was, a simple cargo captain who wanted nothing more than to deliver his goods and go home. His wife Katie sat beside him at the co-pilot station. She was checking their route on a small screen, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. Katie was a practical woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She had been flying ships since she was 16 years old, and there was nothing about space travel that could surprise her anymore. Behind them, in the engine room, Sam Harris and Ben Tucker were playing cards and arguing about whose turn it was to fix the water recycler. Sam was young and eager, always ready to learn something new. Ben was older and slower, but he knew engines better than anyone Danny had ever met. Together, they kept the Distant Star running. This was Danny's crew. This was his family. They were hauling medical supplies to a border colony called New Haven. The colony was small and poor, and the supplies were desperately needed. Danny had taken the job at half the normal price because he knew children were sick and waiting. This was the kind of man he was. The sector of space they traveled through was controlled by the Concord of Seven, an alliance of 7 powerful alien species. The Concord had kept peace in this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They had rules and laws and procedures for everything. Most of the time, these rules worked well. Humans were new to all of this. They had made first contact with alien life only 60 years ago, and they were still learning how things worked out here among the stars. Most alien species saw humans as unimportant. They were not particularly strong. They were not particularly fast. Their technology was average at best. In the great game of galactic politics, humans were minor players, but some species remembered things. The older ones, the ones who had been part of the Concord for a very long time, they had stories, they had warnings, they had a rule that they passed down from generation to generation, though they rarely spoke of it openly. The rule was simple: never make a human truly angry. The Concord's official diplomatic handbook had a strange footnote on page 4012. It said, "When a human announces irritation verbally, immediate de-escalation is advised." No explanation was given. None was needed. For those who knew, Danny did not know about this footnote. He did not think of himself as dangerous. He was just a man trying to make an honest living and take care of his family. The trouble began when the sensors showed another ship approaching. Katie frowned at her screen. "We have company," she said. "Vraxian patrol ship. They're changing course to intercept us." Danny leaned forward. The Vraxians were tall, insect-like creatures, with hard shells and many legs. They had joined the Concord about 200 years ago, which made them relatively new members. They were warriors by nature, proud and aggressive, and they had never witnessed what humans could do when pushed too far. "Open a channel," Danny said. The screen flickered, and a Vraxian face appeared. It was not a pleasant face. The creature had large black eyes, sharp mandibles, and an expression that suggested it had never smiled in its entire life. "Human vessel," the Vraxian said. "I am Sub-Leader Crix, of the Vraxian Third Fleet. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded." Danny kept his voice calm and friendly. "Good evening, Sub-Leader. I'm Captain Danny Cole of the Distant Star. We're carrying medical supplies to New Haven Colony. Is there a problem?" "Your cargo is now subject to customs inspection," Crix said. "You will surrender all goods as tariff payment for passing through this sector." Katie and Danny exchanged a look. They both knew this was not legal. This was not a customs inspection. This was piracy. Plain and simple. But Danny smiled anyway. "I understand there might be some confusion," he said. "We have all our permits and documentation. Perhaps we could discuss this and find a solution that works for everyone." Crix made a sound that might have been laughter. "There is nothing to discuss, human," Your species is weak and soft. You have no fleet to protect you here. You will give us what we want, or we will take it. Those medical supplies are for sick children, Danny said, still smiling, still patient. Surely we can work something out. I have some personal credits I could offer as a good faith payment. Or perhaps I could help you with a future cargo run. There must be something. Your begging is pathetic, Crick said. This is why humans will never matter in this galaxy. You have no strength, no pride. You simply roll over and accept whatever happens to you. Danny's smile stayed fixed on his face. His eyes remained calm. Inside, something very old and very patient began to wake up. But he pushed it back down. I'm not begging, Danny said quietly. I'm offering alternatives. I'm trying to solve this problem without anyone getting hurt. Crix leaned closer to the screen. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. Hurt? You think you could hurt us? You are 4 humans on a cargo ship. I have 50 warriors ready to board your vessel. You cannot hurt us, human. You can only surrender. Katie put her hand on Danny's arm. He patted it gently, reassuringly. Will you at least consider a peaceful solution? Danny asked. There is no peaceful solution, Crick said. There is only the strong and the weak. And you, human, are weak. The screen went dark. A moment later, the distant star shuddered as the Vraxian ship locked onto them with a tractor beam. The sound of metal connecting to metal echoed through the hull. They were being boarded. Katie looked at her husband. What do we do? Danny sat very still for a moment. Then he stood up, rolled his shoulders, and headed toward the cargo bay. Take Sam and Ben to the bridge, he said. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. Danny. He turned back and smiled at her. A real smile this time, soft and warm. It's okay. I'm going to try talking to them one more time. I'm sure we can work this out. Katie knew her husband. She knew that smile. She took Sam and Ben to the bridge without another word. In the cargo bay, Danny waited. He put his hands in his pockets and listened to the sound of the airlock opening. He heard alien feet on metal floors, the clicking and scraping of Vraxian soldiers preparing for violence. He was still smiling when they came through the door. 12 Vraxian soldiers came through the airlock. They were big and terrifying. Standing nearly 7 feet tall on their 6 legs, their bodies were covered in hard black shells that could stop most weapons. Their arms ended in claws that could cut through steel. Each one carried a plasma rifle that glowed with deadly blue light. They moved like hunters, spreading out through the cargo bay, their many eyes scanning for threats. They expected to find scared humans hiding behind crates. They expected crying. They expected begging. Instead, they found Danny Cole standing alone in the middle of the room with his hands in his pockets. He looked at them with mild curiosity, like a man watching insects crawl across his kitchen floor. His smile was still there, patient and calm. Hello, Danny said. Welcome aboard the Distant Star. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? The lead soldier made a harsh clicking sound. It was Vraxian laughter. He stepped forward and shoved Danny hard in the chest, sending him stumbling backward. Quiet, human, the soldier said. Where is the cargo? Danny straightened his shirt. The medical supplies are in those crates over there. But I really think we should talk about this first. Those supplies are meant for sick children, and I'm sure we can find a better solution if we just sit down and discuss things like reasonable people. Another soldier grabbed Danny by the collar and lifted him off his feet. The Vraxian's face was inches away from his, close enough that Danny could smell the strange chemical scent of alien breath. You talk too much, the soldier said. Maybe I should remove your tongue. On the Vraxian patrol ship, Subleader Crix watched everything through a video screen. He sat in his command chair and felt very pleased with himself. This was going exactly as planned. The humans were weak and helpless, just as he had known they would be. He did not notice the incoming communication from the diplomatic cruiser that had just entered the sector. He did not notice the urgent flashing light that indicated someone was trying very hard to contact him. Ambassador Nolveth was trying to reach him. The ambassador was a sentinel, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. His kind had been part of the Concord since its beginning. Thousands of years ago, they had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched species evolve and disappear. They remembered everything. And right now, Nolvith was very, very afraid. His hands trembled as he tried again and again to contact the Vraxian ship. His assistant, a young sentinel named Polreth, watched him with confusion. "Ambassador, what is wrong?" "It is just a cargo ship. A human cargo ship." "That is exactly what is wrong," Nolveth said. His voice was shaking. "Get me that Vraxian commander. Now. Before it is too late." "Too late for what?" Nolvith turned to his assistant with ancient eyes full of memory and fear. "The Vraxians are young. They joined the Concord after the first human wars. They do not know. They do not remember." 4. Remember what? What humans really are. Back on the distant star, the situation was getting worse. The Vraxian soldiers had started opening crates and throwing supplies on the floor. Medical equipment, worth thousands of credits, was being destroyed. Medicines that could save lives were being crushed under alien feet. One soldier found a picture of Katie on a wall panel. He made a disgusting comment about what he would like to do to the human female. The other soldiers laughed. Another soldier pointed his weapon at Danny's face. "Kneel," he commanded. "Kneel before your betters, human." Danny did not move. His smile was gone now. His face had become very still, like the surface of a pond with no wind. His eyes, which had been warm and friendly, were now empty and cold. The change was so small that the Vraxians did not notice it. But if Katie had been there, she would have quietly left the room. If any human had been there, they would have recognized what they were seeing. They would have recognized the moment when patience runs out. "I have been very patient with you," Danny said. His voice was soft and level. "I have been polite. I have offered solutions. I have tried to handle this like civilized people." The soldier with the gun laughed and pushed the weapon harder against Danny's forehead. "You will kneel, human, or I will burn a hole through your skull." Danny looked up at the security camera. He knew Crix was watching. He wanted the sub-leader to hear what came next. "You have threatened my ship. You have destroyed medical supplies meant for sick children. You have insulted my wife." Danny's voice was still quiet. But there was something underneath it now, something old and dark and very dangerous. "I have tried everything I can think of to avoid what comes next. This is not more." He paused. "Now I'm getting irritated." In the diplomatic cruiser, Ambassador Nolveth finally got through to Sub-Leader Crix. The Vraxian commander's face appeared on the screen, looking annoyed at the interruption. "What do you want, old one?" "I am busy claiming salvage from a human vessel." "Listen to me very carefully," Nolveth said. His voice was urgent, desperate. "You must pull your soldiers out immediately. You must release that ship and leave this sector. You must do this now. Right now, before it is too late." Crix clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Why would I do that? The humans are helpless. They have already surrendered." "They have not surrendered," Nolveth said. "They have been patient. There is a difference. A very important difference. I do not understand. The human captain. Has he said anything? Has he shown any sign of anger?" Crix thought about it. "He said he was getting irritated." "What does that matter? Words from a weak species mean nothing." Nolveth's face went pale. In all his thousands of years of life, he had never felt fear like this. "Run," he whispered. "What?" "Run," Nolveth screamed. "Get your soldiers out of there now. Run, you fool. Run." Crix stared at the screen in confusion. This ancient, respected ambassador was screaming at him like a frightened child. It made no sense. They were dealing with 4 humans on a cargo ship. What possible danger could there be? "I think you have gone mad, old one," Crix said. "Perhaps it is time for you to retire." He cut the transmission. On his ship, Nolveth sank back in his chair. His hearts were pounding. His hands would not stop shaking. "What happens now?" Polreth asked. Nolveth closed his ancient eyes. Now we watch. And we remember why we fear them. On the distant star, Danny Cole stood surrounded by 12 armed Vraxian warriors. They were bigger than him. They were stronger than him. They had weapons and armor and numbers on their side. None of it mattered. Danny took his hands out of his pockets. He rolled his neck slowly from side to side. Something in his eyes changed. Like a switch being flipped. Like a door being opened. "Last chance," he said quietly. "Leave my ship. Now." The soldier in front of him raised his plasma rifle. Danny smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Okay then," he said. "Let's begin." The first soldier never saw it coming. Danny moved like water. Like smoke. Like something that should not be possible for a simple cargo captain. One moment, he was standing still. The next moment, the plasma rifle was in his hands and the soldier was on the ground, screaming, his arm bent at an angle that nature never intended. The other soldiers reacted. They were trained warriors. Bred for combat. Enhanced with technology that made them faster and stronger than most species in the galaxy. They raised their weapons. They aimed. They fired. But Danny was not where they were shooting. He was already among them, inside their formation, too close for rifles to be useful. His elbow found a throat. His knee found a joint. His fingers found the gaps in their armor. The soft places where shells met shells. The weak points that every creature has. No matter how strong they appear, 2 more soldiers fell. What the Vraxians did not understand, what most of the galaxy did not understand, was where humans came from. 60 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars, they had seemed so ordinary. They were soft-skinned mammals from a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no venom, no armor. They died easily from things that other species would barely notice. But those who studied humanity more closely discovered something disturbing. Earth was not a normal planet. It was a death world. The gravity was crushing, half again as strong as the galactic average. The atmosphere contained a corrosive gas called oxygen that would kill most species within minutes. The weather was violent and unpredictable, ranging from frozen wastelands to boiling deserts. The planet was covered with predators, poisons, diseases, and natural disasters. And humans had not just survived on this nightmare world. They had conquered it. They had fought their way to the top of the food chain through pure, stubborn refusal to die. They had hunted animals 10 times their size by simply following them for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. They had walked through deserts and swam through oceans and climbed mountains that should have killed them. They were persistence predators. They did not need to be the fastest or the strongest. They just needed to keep going. Long after everything else had given up. In the cargo bay, Danny kept going. A soldier swung a massive claw at his head. Danny ducked, grabbed the arm, and used the soldier's own momentum to flip him into 2 of his companions. Before they could untangle themselves, Danny had broken one's leg and dislocated another's shoulder. 5 soldiers down. The remaining 7 backed away, finally understanding that something was very wrong. This was not what humans were supposed to be. This was not what they had been told. Humans were supposed to be weak. Humans were supposed to beg. This human was not begging. 60 years ago, during the first human wars, a Vraxian ancestor species called the Vreth had tried to enslave a human colony. The colony was called Harmony, and it had only 800 people, mostly farmers and teachers and engineers. The Vreth had sent an army of 10,000 warriors to take the planet. The war lasted 3 years. At the end, when conquered peacekeepers finally arrived, they found the Vreth army destroyed. Not defeated. Destroyed. The humans had fought with farming tools. With rocks. With their bare hands. They had built traps and weapons from nothing. They had refused to surrender even when there was no logical hope of victory. The peacekeepers found the last Vreth commander hiding in a cave, starving and terrified. When they asked him what had happened, he could only say one thing. They would not stop. We killed them, and killed them, and they would not stop. They just kept coming. That war was why the old species remembered. That war was why the rule existed. In the cargo bay, 7 soldiers remained standing. They had lost their confidence. They had lost their certainty. Fear was creeping into their minds. A fear they did not understand. Danny stood among their fallen companions, not even breathing hard. There was no anger on his face, no rage, no emotion at all. Just cold, efficient focus. This was what made humans truly terrifying. Other species became sloppy when they fought. They let emotion cloud their judgment. They made mistakes. Humans did not make mistakes. When humans fought, they became something else entirely. They became machines, calculating and precise, doing exactly what needed to be done, with no wasted movement. One soldier tried to run. Danny caught him in 3 steps and put him down with a strike to the nerve cluster behind his head. Another raised his rifle and actually managed to fire. But Danny had already moved, and the shot burned a hole in the wall instead. 6 soldiers down. 7. 8. Sub-Leader Crix watched from his ship in frozen horror. His mandibles had stopped clicking. His multiple eyes were wide with disbelief. This was impossible. This could not be happening. 9 soldiers down. 10. The last 2 soldiers dropped their weapons and raised their hands. The universal gesture of surrender. They were shaking. They had never known fear like this before, and they never wanted to feel it again. Danny stopped. He stood in the middle of the cargo bay, surrounded by groaning, broken Vraxians. He had not killed any of them. He had simply made them unable to fight. This was important. This was deliberate, because Danny was still irritated. He was not yet angry. He walked to the security camera and looked directly into it. He knew Crix was watching. He wanted the sub-leader to understand something very clearly. That was irritation, Danny said. His voice was calm and level, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. That was me being annoyed. I held back. I showed restraint. Every single one of your soldiers is still alive, though some of them will need medical attention. He paused to let the words sink in. Now let me ask you something, Sub-Leader Crix. You made a comment about my wife. Your soldiers destroyed medicine meant for sick children. You came onto my ship and tried to take what was not yours. Danny leaned closer to the camera. Would you like to see what happens when I get angry? Would you like to know what I am capable of when I stop holding back? Because I promise you, Sub-Leader, what you just saw was nothing. What you just saw was me being gentle. On his ship, Crix could not move. He could not speak. He could only stare at the screen and feel the cold weight of understanding settling into his gut. He had made a terrible mistake. I'm going to give you one chance, Danny said. Release my ship, leave this sector, and pray that I never see you again. The transmission ended. In the cargo bay, Danny let out a long, slow breath. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of holding himself back. He looked at the injured soldiers around him and felt something that might have been pity. They had not known. How could they? They were young, and foolish, and arrogant, and no one had ever taught them the rule. Katie's voice came over the intercom. Danny? Is it over? He smiled, and the warmth came back into his eyes. Almost, he said. Just one more thing to take care of. On the Vraxian patrol ship, Sub-Leader Crix was about to have the worst day of his life. Sub-Leader Crix tried to run. The moment Danny's transmission ended, Crix screamed at his crew to release the tractor beam and engage the engines. He did not care about his soldiers on the human ship. He did not care about the cargo. He only cared about putting as much distance as possible between himself and that terrible, patient human. But the engines would not respond. What is happening? Crix demanded. Why are we not moving? His navigation officer turned to him with fear in his eyes. Our systems, Sub-Leader. Someone has infected them with a virus. We cannot jump. We can barely maneuver. On the distant star, Katie Cole smiled at her screen. She had written that virus 3 years ago, just in case. She had uploaded it to the Vraxian ship the moment they connected their tractor beam. Danny had never asked her to do this. He had never needed to. After 15 years of marriage, they understood each other without words. Danny walked onto the bridge and kissed his wife on the forehead. "Nice work," he said. "I figured you might need some time with him," Katie replied. Ambassador Nulveth's ship arrived in the sector with a Concord peacekeeping fleet right behind it. There were 6 warships, each one powerful enough to destroy both the distant star and the Vraxian patrol ship without effort. The ambassador himself appeared on Danny's screen, his ancient face tight with concern. "Captain Cole," Nulveth said. "I am Ambassador Nulveth of the Sentinel species. I apologize for what has happened here. The Vraxians acted without authority. Please allow us to handle this situation." Danny considered this for a moment. He looked at the Vraxian ship on his screen, sitting dead in space, with its systems crippled. He thought about the medical supplies scattered across his cargo bay, some of them ruined forever. He thought about sick children waiting on New Haven Colony. He thought about what that soldier had said about Katie. "With respect, Ambassador," Danny said. "This is personal now." Nulveth closed his eyes. He had known this would happen. He had hoped, somehow, that it would not. "Captain Cole, I understand your anger, but I must ask you to show mercy. The Vraxians are young. They did not know what they were doing. Then they will learn," Danny said. "Sam, Ben, how are our engines?" Sam's voice came over the intercom, young and excited. "Ready when you are, Captain. Ben's been making some modifications over the years. We can give you about twice the normal speed, maybe more." Ben's older voice followed. "She'll shake apart if we push her too hard. But she'll hold together long enough." The distant star was a cargo freighter. It was not designed for speed. It was not designed for combat. But Sam and Ben had been working on it for years, adding things here, adjusting things there, making quiet improvements that no inspection would ever notice. They had done this because they knew their captain, and they knew that one day, he might need more than a cargo ship. Today was that day. The distant star leaped forward, engines screaming, chasing after the crippled Vraxian patrol ship. Crix managed to get some power to his drives and began limping away at a fraction of his normal speed. It was not enough. It was not even close to enough. Crix sent out distress calls to every Vraxian ship in the sector. He begged for help. He demanded assistance. He promised rewards and threatened punishments. No one responded. Word had already spread through the Vraxian fleet. An older commander on a distant ship had heard what happened, and he had told others. And they had told others still. Within an hour, every Vraxian captain in the sector knew that Subleader Crix had angered a human. They wanted no part of it. Crix called a Vraxian battlecruiser directly. "Commander Veth, I need your help. A human is chasing me." Commander Veth, who was old enough to have read the histories, shook his head slowly. "You should not have touched his ship, Subleader. You should not have threatened his mate. I will not sacrifice my crew for your foolishness. I order you to help me. You do not outrank me," Veth said coldly. "And even if you did, I would not help you. May the stars have mercy on you. Because the human will not." The transmission ended. Crix ran for 3 hours. He pushed his damaged ship as hard as it would go, jumping from system to system, trying to find somewhere safe. But Danny followed. The distant star stayed on his tail, never falling behind, never giving up. This was what humans did. This was what they had always done. They followed. They persisted. They kept coming long after any sensible creature would have stopped. Finally, Crix reached a Vraxian outpost station at the edge of the sector. He docked his ship and stumbled out, screaming for protection. The station was commanded by High Commander Sithos, an ancient Vraxian with gray shells and tired eyes who had served the Concord for over 100 years. Sithos watched Crix babble about demons and monsters and unstoppable humans. Then he looked at his screen and saw the distant star approaching, slow and steady, like death itself coming to collect a debt. He went to the airlock to meet it. Danny walked off his ship alone. He was calm now. The chase had given him time to think, time to cool down, time to decide what he really wanted. "Captain Cole," Sithos said. "I am High Commander Sithos. I have heard what Subleader Crix did to you. Then you understand why I'm here." Sithos nodded slowly. His old eyes studied the human before him. He saw a man of average height, average build, with nothing special about him at all. But he also saw something else. He saw the quiet stillness of a predator at rest. He saw the patience of a species that had hunted animals to extinction by simply walking after them until they died. "You could have killed my soldiers," Sithos said. "Yes," Danny agreed. "But you did not." "No." Sithos was quiet for a moment. "What do you want, Captain Cole?" Danny looked past him, into the station, where Crix was hiding behind a group of armed guards. The sub-leader's eyes were wide with terror. He had learned the rule now. He had learned it the hard way. "I want an apology," Danny said. "From him. To my wife. Face to face." Sithos raised a shell in surprise. "That is all?" "No. I also want a guarantee that this sector will be safe for human ships from now on. No more piracy. No more threats. Ships pass through freely, or they don't pass through at all." The demands were reasonable. More than reasonable. After what Crix had done, Danny would have been justified in asking for much, much more. Sithos knew this. He knew the stories of what humans had done during the first wars, the things they had done when they were truly angry. This human was not truly angry. This human was still showing mercy. "Done," Sithos said. He turned and walked back into the station. A few minutes later, he returned with Crix, who was shaking so badly he could barely stand. The sub-leader fell to his knees before Danny, his proud warrior's body broken by fear. "I am sorry," Crix whispered. "I am sorry for what I said about your mate. I am sorry for what I did. Please, please, just let me live." Danny looked down at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to his ship without another word. He had gotten what he came for. There was nothing more to say. 1 year later, the story of the distant star had spread across the galaxy. It was told in bars and trading posts, in military academies and diplomatic halls. It grew with each telling, as stories often do. Some versions said Danny had killed 50 soldiers with his bare hands. Others said he had chased Crix for days across multiple sectors. A few wild versions claimed he had torn apart the Vraxian patrol ship piece by piece. The truth was less dramatic but somehow more frightening. A simple cargo captain had disabled 12 elite warriors in under 2 minutes, then chased their commander halfway across the sector. And in the end, had asked only for an apology. That restraint, that control, that terrible patience, was what made the story so disturbing to alien ears. Young species who had dismissed humans as harmless began to watch them more carefully. They noticed things they had not noticed before. They noticed how humans could run for hours without stopping. They noticed how humans smiled when they were angry, how they became quiet when they were dangerous, how they never, ever gave up. The old species who remembered the first human wars nodded to themselves and said nothing. They had tried to warn the others. They had tried to explain. Now, perhaps, the younger ones would listen. The Concord of Seven updated its official diplomatic handbook. The single footnote about human irritation was expanded into an entire chapter. It included detailed guidelines on how to recognize the warning signs of human anger, how to de-escalate situations before they became dangerous, and what to do if de-escalation failed. The answer to that last question was simple: run, and hope they did not follow. Sub-Leader Crix was quietly demoted and transferred to a garbage collection ship on the far side of Vraxian space. He never commanded soldiers again. He never spoke of what happened on the distant star. But sometimes, late at night, he would wake up screaming from dreams of a human with cold eyes and a patient smile. High Commander Sithos retired from military service and wrote a book about his experiences. The chapter about Danny Cole became required reading at every Vraxian military academy. It was titled simply, "The Rule." The sector where the incident occurred became one of the safest regions in Concord space. No pirate, no raider, no corrupt customs officer dared to trouble ships passing through. Everyone had heard the story. Everyone knew that a human cargo captain had made this place safe, and no one wanted to find out what would happen if that safety was threatened. Danny and Katie Cole kept flying the distant star. They delivered cargo. They helped colonies. They lived their simple, honest lives as if nothing had changed. But something had changed. Wherever they went now, aliens watched them with new eyes. Dock workers were extra polite. Officials processed their paperwork quickly and without complaint. Other captains gave them right of way without being asked. Danny pretended not to notice. He was still the same patient, friendly man he had always been. He still smiled at everyone. He still tried to solve problems with words before anything else. He still believed in kindness and fairness and giving people second chances. But everyone who looked at him now saw something else beneath the surface. They saw the thing that had always been there. The thing that humans carried inside them like a sleeping dragon. They saw what would wake up if they pushed too hard. 6 months after the incident, Ambassador Nolveth came to visit the Coles during a stopover at New Haven Colony. The medical supplies they had fought to protect had saved many lives. Children who would have died were now running and playing in the streets. The colony had named a small park after Danny and Katie. Though Danny had been embarrassed and asked them not to, they had dinner together in a small restaurant overlooking the park. Nolveth was old and wise and had seen more than most beings could imagine. But there was something about these two humans that he could not quite understand, no matter how hard he tried. After the meal, after the small talk, Nolveth asked Danny a question that had been bothering him for a year. "Captain Cole, may I ask you something?" "Of course, Ambassador." Nolveth folded his ancient hands together. "When you confronted High Commander Sethos, you asked only for an apology and a promise of safe passage. You could have asked for so much more. You could have demanded Crix's life. You could have started a war. Why didn't you?" Danny was quiet for a moment. He looked at Katie, who smiled at him and squeezed his hand. "Because that's not who I want to be," Danny said simply. "Yes. I was angry. Yes. I wanted to hurt Crix for what he said about Katie. But wanting something and doing something are two different things. I had a choice. I could let my anger control me, or I could control my anger. I chose to stay human." "Stay human? It's an expression from Earth," Katie explained. "It means to hold on to the things that make us good, even when it would be easier to let them go. Danny has always been good at staying human, even when others are not." Nolveth considered this for a long time. Then he asked another question, one that cut closer to the truth. "What would you have done if Sethos had refused your demands?" Danny and Katie exchanged a look. Something passed between them, something old and deep and wordless. It was the shared understanding of a species that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. It was the knowledge of what they were capable of, and the weight of keeping that capability in check. "We would have been very disappointed," Danny said mildly. Nolveth did not ask for clarification. He was old enough to know when he did not want to hear the answer. They finished their dinner and parted as friends. Nolveth went back to his diplomatic duties, and Danny and Katie went back to the distant star. Life continued, as it always had, but the story did not end. Years later, on a distant Vraxian world, a young girl asked her grandmother a question. "Grandmother, why must we always be polite to humans? They are so small and soft. They do not look dangerous at all." The grandmother was very old. She had survived the first human wars, back when she was barely more than a child herself. She had seen things that still visited her in nightmares, things that she had never told anyone, things that she prayed her granddaughter would never see. She leaned down and looked into the child's innocent eyes. "Because, little one, when a human tells you they are getting irritated, it means they are still being kind. They are giving you a warning. They are giving you a chance to walk away. And if you don't walk away," the old grandmother's voice dropped to a whisper, "then you will learn what the rest of the galaxy learned long ago. That humans are not soft. That humans are not weak. That humans are the most patient, most persistent, most terrifying species the universe has ever seen. And when they stop being patient, when they stop being kind, when they finally let go of the thing they keep locked away inside them." She paused and looked out the window at the stars, at the vast darkness where humans and aliens lived side by side, bound by rules and treaties, and one simple truth: Then there is nowhere in the galaxy far enough to run. The child was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded seriously, as children do when they are learning something important. I will always be polite to humans, grandmother. Good, the old woman said. That is the wisest thing you will ever learn. And somewhere in the black of space, on a cargo freighter called the Distant Star, Danny Cole smiled at his wife and flew on toward the next delivery, patient and kind and human. For now,